All right, get in here. It's the day where we talk about the big stories of the week. This week, words I didn't expect to be saying, a brand new Karate Kid movie, and yes, Jackie Chan is back. And the box office numbers lately have been pretty strong, which tells us we're in for one big summer at the movies. The group chat's here. Let's go. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Okay, you must understand why we have to start right here.
Wax on, wax off.
Wax on, wax off, wax on, hot. Wax off, hot. Concentrate. Look at my eye. Lock a hand. Thumb inside. Wax on, hot. Wax off, hot.
I don't have to tell you. I don't have to tell you what that is. That's an incredibly famous moment from the original Karate Kid movie. That's when Daniel suddenly realizes that all the household chores that he's been doing for Mr. Miyagi, they've actually been secretly, the entire time, his actual karate training. That movie created a bit of a frenzy. You might have noticed in the 80s, we've got a bunch of sequels, a remake, a TV show, and a gigantic passion for martial arts. We've had Karate Kids played by Ralph Macchio, Hilary Swank, Jaden Smith. Now, Ben Wong steps into the role as the first Asian American actor to lead this franchise. It's a big moment. Karate Kid Legends just hit theaters. Aram Collier is here. Alison Willmore is here. Hoai-Tran is here. And we are ready to get into it. Welcome to the group chat, everybody. How are you?
Good. Hello.
Good.
Come on. I'm delighted that everybody's here. Let's do this. Okay, Aram, when we reached out to you about Karate Kid, you said, I've been waiting for this email my whole life, which is quite the expectation setter. Tell me about this. What did Karate Kid mean to you?
I wrote back really fast. So I grew up in the 80s, right? So big fan of the original trilogy. And actually, I'm a big fan of Karate Kid Part 2. So just setting the scene, I had two older sisters. We used to spend our summers in New Mexico, kind of rural. They had just opened up a cinema. This was the first movie. They dropped us off. My parents dropped us off to watch a movie alone. So it was just had everything. It had Asian people talking to each other, right? So Yuji Okamoto is chosen. He's the villain of my youth. Tamlin Tomita. She's Kumiko, the crush of my youth. And then Miyagi, we get his backstory in Okinawa. And top it all off, you got Peter Cetera, Glory of Love. And so what more can you ask for aside from, really bad accents, Orientalist flute music? But I will say this is the Empire Strikes Back of the entire Karate Kid franchise.
Okay, what I liked about that, Aram, is like the minute that you said it, both Hoai-Tran and Alison were like, yeah, the second one. Obviously, that's the one. Which I gotta tell you, this was not a response I was expecting. Okay, the reason that we're all gathered here is because of Karate Kid Legends. Let's hear a trailer right now.
Sensei LaRusso.
Let's make a Karate Kid.
You have a foundation of Kung Fu.
We're gonna build upon that with karate.
Ancient way.
Miyagi way.
There's two of them.
Focus!
I'm so pumped I just want to do karate right now. Hoai-Tran, talk to me about Karate Kid Legends. What is this new movie about?
Karate Kid Legends follows Ben Wong's Li Fong, who moves from Beijing to New York City with his mom. And he has given up Kung Fu because of a past traumatic incident involving his brother who passed after a tournament. And it goes in a direction that you wouldn't expect because the karate doesn't take place until maybe like the last 20 minutes of this movie. Actually, it's mostly about boxing, kind of.
Hey, okay.
So when he moves to New York, he of course meets a cute girl next door and her dad, who runs an Italian pizza shop. And her dad is a former boxer played by Joshua Jackson. And to avoid some loan sharks, Joshua Jackson's character asks Li Fong to help him learn Kung Fu. And it's kind of fun, reverse Karate Kid for the first half of this movie, where you see the kid teaching an adult Kung Fu, but using the everyday objects and stuff. But it's about, it's a whole different movie that then switches to another different movie 45 minutes in, and you're like, oh, this is the movie that was actually advertised. So there's a little bit of false advertising going in this trailer specifically, because Jackie Chan is great, but only is maybe spends most of his screen time behind a phone, and then Ralph Macchio shows up and in the last 20 minutes again. So it's a bit of a strange, awkward, like marriage of two movies that don't really connect together, and honestly are not really that good. Sorry to say.
I'm going to choose to ignore that last part of the thing that you just said because the only thing I heard is reverse Miyagi, and that makes me go, yeah, I'm in. All right, I don't need anything else. I'm a simple man, Hoai-Tran. I'm not a movie critic. That's not the job here. Alison, let me ask you this: Ben Wong is the star of this movie, making him the first Asian American Karate Kid. How do you feel about his performance in this role?
Yeah, I hadn't seen him in his other work before. He's made two things for the Disney streaming service, Disney Plus. He was in American Born Chinese and also in Chang Can Dunk, a movie. I hadn't seen either. So this was my first real exposure to him. I think he's very charming. I think he obviously knows how to do martial arts, which is a huge ask here. And I really liked that he does, in a kind of gesture towards, I think, Jackie Chan's kind of long, legendary cinematic history. He inserts some physical comedy into the kind of martial arts sequences. So you have him, of course, like beating up a bunch of different guys, but it's also really kind of goofy. There's a little bit of slapstick inserted, which I really appreciated. I mean, if you're going to have Jackie Chan in your movie, even if he doesn't show up till like as implied, like much later than you would expect, I appreciated the nod towards that. I do feel like I would agree. I think that this movie is kind of bifurcated in an odd way. It's funny that the movies like can't get away. They're like, the formula is it has to be an Asian character teaching a non-Asian character martial arts. So like he has to be the teacher, even though he's a teenager for like a while. It is a little odd. But the time it finally does get to the good stuff we want, your training montages, you're fighting in a random martial arts tournament that happens on rooftops and streets around New York City for no reason at all. It just feels a little hurried. I wanted a bit more time spent with his character. That said, I think that he's a really promising actor, and I would like to see more of him.
Okay, so far what I have is reverse Miyagi and training montages. I'm in. I don't need anything else. Aram, as you sort of think about this movie and the idea that you're like, I've been waiting for this one. I'm waiting for this moment. When you think about Karate Kid Legends, does it in any kind of way hold up against the original movies?
I mean, just like Alison said, it really sticks to the formula, which, in the martial arts tradition, I think that fulfills the assignment, right? It's kind of like having a really good can of soup, like there's no surprises. And there's something, it's not always wrong or bad to know where you're going. So I found it actually comforting. I will say, to echo a little bit, like I felt that when Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio showed up, it did kind of go off the rails a little bit because there were a little bit more surprises. And I did really enjoy seeing Ben Wong in it too. He's a musical theater guy. And I've seen him in some independent films as well. So I'm really interested to see what happens with him, whether it's in this franchise or somewhere else.
Hoai-Tran, the framing of this movie and the positioning of this movie is all about the returning figures, right? It's sort of like about the idea that like, oh my God, you're gonna get Jackie Chan here, Ralph Macchio in here. There's something about that sort of like keeps you beholden to an original, whatever the original connection and nostalgia is with the franchise. Was it good to see these figures again, or do you kind of like think, Karate Kid kind of maybe needs a fresh start?
It's interesting because I feel like the movie is trying to have it both ways. Like we talked about the bifurcated nature of it too, where like the first half is all about Li Fong and all about Ben Wong's character, and you kind of get to see like he is standing on his own, but then the movie is like, oh, but we do have to kind of pay homage to Miyagi and the Karate Kid legend and legacy, and that's where I think it kind of starts to stumble a little bit. Even though I do really love seeing Jackie Chan, I think that the movie does light up when he's on screen, just because he's such a star.
He's Jackie Chan.
He's Jackie Chan. But it is interesting seeing Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio on screen together, because it is like seeing Jackie Chan, a martial arts legend, and Ralph Macchio, who was, the teen heartthrob star of the original franchise, but isn't quite a strong like fighter. There's a lot of fight sequences where you're like, oh, they really cut to his body double a lot of times. So it tries to do so, and by like having them kind of spar in terms of which one is the better fighting techniques. But I think that in that it kind of just drags the movie out of like the actual story that I wanted to see, which is Li Fong. Ben Wong's character.
Aram, do you end up missing seeing sort of, you end up missing Pat Morita as Miyagi as you kind of watch this movie?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about him because he really looms over the franchise as a whole. Like
Yeah.
everything kind of comes back to him. So I don't miss him in the film per se, but I think what maybe missed opportunities with with Jackie Chan's character is that Miyagi, they would sprinkle in his history, whether it was like his internment history, his personal experience in the 442nd during World War II. Like I love seeing those little nods to Asian American history within his character, and that just is not in this film at all.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up because, Alison, I do feel like when this movie came out in the 80s, it was like this glimpse, let's say, into America's perception of Asia and Japan specifically. When you think about this movie, what do you think Karate Kid Legends says about America's relationship to Asianness now?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You remember, like, the last film with Jaden Smith was filmed in China. Even though it was called The Karate Kid still, it was about Kung Fu. They were just like, it's fine. This will.
Don't worry about it.
Yes, this movie does grapple, sometimes in confusing ways, with the idea of different martial arts traditions being separate. Why you would need to learn karate in a week to win this mystifying tournament is left unclear, aside from IP reasons. But I find, like, the last one was shot in China. Was a Chinese co-production, had a different edit for the Chinese release as well. Was very much like made with this idea, like this will capitalize on playing internationally as well. With this film, it feels like maybe it comes from a place of like maybe the increased complicated relationship between the nations right now, in that, it is about these Chinese nationals who are supposed to be kind of like this kid who's supposed to be an outsider in the US, but is also played by an actor who has spent most of his life in the US. And so his coding is kind of like this like in-between space. And I think it just creates an interesting point of just like how much this movie wants to kind of extend a hand and think about the idea of like a Chinese experience in the US, or Jackie Chan's character and what his experience is beyond this kind of generic, like in this movie, just there to tell Ming-Na's character, it's okay, you have to let your kid do Kung Fu, which is, she has a very thankless role in this. Yeah. I mean, I find these movies like really interesting always as reflections of the kind of American attempts to process like our relation, like a national relationship with Asia. And I think in this one, it's just it's got a lot of stuff going in many directions in ways that I find so interesting.
I'm also like, I'm not convinced that like the original Karate Kid was trying to engage that discourse that much. I think it was sort of like, it just ended up functioning that way. And Hoai-Tran, like, the original had, the crane kick. This movie has 2 different signature moves. Pal of the show, Collier sort of coined this phrase, the idea of a 5-star, 3-star movie. And I sort of like the perfect version of that to me is the original Karate Kid. I would not go like the Karate Kid. What a perfectly made film, but it's a movie you could put on any time and go like, I'm having a great time. This is the best time, which is like, it's a perfect sort of ideal of a 5-star, 3-star movie. Do you think Karate Kid Legends sort of lives in the same space? Does it sort of accomplish the same kind of just like, here's a bit of joy that you can kind of hang out with, or does it think too hard, do you think?
Unfortunately, I think it falls really short of even the 3-star that the original Karate Kid had. And I'm not a huge fan of the Karate Kid franchise. I've seen Karate Kid 1 and 2. I've seen like a handful of episodes of Cobra Kai, but I do have some hardcore Cobra Kai friends who are fans of Cobra Kai. And they're like, oh, Cobra Kai is like, what if Karate Kid Legends was good? Basically, it's I think a poor attempt at nostalgia that unfortunately, because of that, really falls flat of even the 3 stars that Karate Kid was. It's not cozy. It's just kind of a little bit lukewarm.
Hoai-Tran, what you don't know about me is that I'm undeterred by bad reviews, and so I will nonetheless be seeing Karate Kid Legends. But I appreciate this vantage point. I want to just shift gears a little bit here. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. Aram COI Collier is here, Hoai-Tran is here, and Alison Willmore is here. And so far, we've been sort of like talking about the Karate Kid, but also just sort of trying to figure out, do people want to go to the movies? Do people want to go back to the theaters? We've got streaming at home. You had the pandemic. The Hollywood writers and actors strikes put a lot of projects on hold. So there has been some question as to the health of the box office and whether that's going to sustain. But maybe maybe that is all changing because this last weekend, the live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch made $200 million in North America. That is not a movie that I thought I needed. That is a movie that I saw, and I had a great time at the movies. Mission Impossible came in at $79 million, came in second. Movies like Sinners, Final Destination are actually doing really well, surpassing so many analysts' sort of expectations. So reports are kind of at this point predicting that the box office could bring in maybe as much as $4 billion from this summer. That is a lot to talk about. Alison, what do you make when you hear all these gigantic numbers that we maybe haven't heard in a few years when it comes to Hollywood?
I've always believed that people do want to go to a movie theater. Like, it's fun to go to a movie theater. I like seeing movies with a crowd is great. I think we've all had plenty of time at this point to acquaint ourselves with streaming. And I think whether if you there is a difference, I think, in terms of the experiences. I think streaming is incredibly convenient. It's obviously an enormous part of our lives, but I think the idea that is just going to fulfill all of our entertainment needs forever is clearly not the case. I think it's more just been a question of are they making movies that people, one, hear about? Because I do think marketing is harder than it's ever been in terms of breaking through to people, but also that people want to see. And I mean, I didn't see the new Lilo and Stitch. I was away, but it's no surprise to me that people want to take their kids out to see the movie. Of course. Or that people would gonna go out to see Tom Cruise dangling from a plane and almost dying again.
We'll always
which
pay
is
to see that.
one of the great cinematic spectacles of our lifetime. I do think that the challenge has been making things that seem to people something that they should go out to the theater to see. But watching how Sinners has done and watching the way it just had this kind of traction and word of mouth and it's just all of this conversation has been kind of sprung up around it. I mean, I think that's just really affirming that people do want to see things, whether it's big spectacle, nostalgia for better or worse, or just something original. And I mean, that's exciting to me.
Yeah, Aaron, the story with Sinners has been that people go see it and then they go tell a friend and go you gotta go see this movie and go see it in a theater. And I think there's a whole generation of people now who didn't know what a 70 millimeter movie was, and they're that's what I want. I want that experience. I want to experience Sinners in 70 millimeter in IMAX. I think as Alison said, we have been in the streaming era for a little while, but as a filmmaker and festival programmer, why are the box office numbers so important to the film industry?
It's so important to reestablish the film going culture, film going. There's plenty of discourse about watching things on streaming, but actually going that active, seeing it with other people, watching the Karate Kid Legends last night, there was tons of Cobra Kai fans who were really engaged in it. Yeah. And so I think that's really important. And, for a festival like ours, that film going culture is really important as a trickle down effect. Yeah. And then as an aside, my kids, they kind of came into consciousness during the pandemic. So they don't want to watch movies in theaters. They don't really know about it. Right. Yeah. So they're starting to warm up to that. Right. And I did take them to the Minecraft movie. So because they actually said they wanted to go watch it. So, I have to use any opportunity to push that film going culture. So, but then, but again, I would really like to see original stories like Sinners, not just franchise IP. So.
Hoai-Tran, is your read on it that we maybe pronounced the movies dead a little too soon? Do we sort of accelerate to the rush of the idea of that people don't want to go to the theaters anymore, they just want streaming? Did we sort of reach that conclusion a little bit too soon, do you think?
I mean, I think there's certainly the fear there, and especially with the theatrical windows for a lot of movies being shortened so much during COVID, and still kind of having that shortened window where after 30 days, 60 days in theaters, they are immediately go to digital and then they go to streaming, and people are we can just wait for it to hit streaming or digital and don't have to spend $20 to go to the theater. So I think that the fear is still there, but I think the theatrical experience is still alive and kicking. I think that it's not dead yet. In the words of Monty Python.
Yeah, every once in a while I go the movies are back, baby, and then someone has to go the movies never really went anywhere. It's just a matter of some stuff was taking up more space than others, and you just needed to let some things breathe and let movies like Sinners, something like that is original but also breathtaking, actually take people in. And I think that's what I've enjoyed about the sort of Sinners press cycle. Let's talk about what each of you is excited to see this summer, because there's going to be some big movies. The idea of a $4 billion summer, first of all, is nuts to me. But then I go, okay, maybe I can see the value of the idea of, a Jurassic World. Am I going to see it? Yeah, I am going to see it. But Hoai-Tran, I'm going to start with you. What movie are you most excited for this summer?
You know, I am really excited about James Gunn's Superman. And I know we just talked about like, oh, we're kind of tired of IP, we're tired of superhero movies.
Yeah.
We've got like the superhero fatigue, but I am excited because we haven't had a sincere, earnest Superman movie, much not even maybe even like a superhero movie in general, in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I like to see this return for Superman, who I feel like is the embodiment of just like pure cornball, like good.
Yeah.
And
Super
I
earnest,
think,
super straightforward.
yeah,
Yeah.
super earnest. I think we need that more than ever now. And I love how comic booky and bright the movie looks. I'm excited about the cast. I'm excited about Gunn taking his bringing his approach to this movie. So I'm excited about a Superman movie. Color me, call me optimistic.
I
but
love that.
I'm excited.
That's
Yeah.
the spirit of Superman. Like that's exactly what you buy into Superman for. Allison, is Jonathan Bailey in Tiny Glasses? Is that what you're putting your eggs in? That's by the way, that's Jurassic World. But what are you excited for this summer?
I would say I am also excited about the Superman movie. I'm also excited about the Naked Gun remake, which I mean, I love the original Naked Gun movies. Also like the straight studio comedy, not an action comedy, not a romantic action comedy, but like a full on just comedy. Like that's really had a tough time lately. That is something that has like not done well in theaters. And I feel like it's time to prove that it can come back because watching a comedy in theaters is so fun. Plus you've got Liam Neeson in the role inherited from Leslie Nielsen, Saskatchewan's own.
Yeah.
And I just feel like he can be really funny. And that's, that tradition of having an actor who's come from like a dramatic background doing really goofy comedy is something that I'm looking forward to. It's directed by Akiva Schaffer from The Lonely Island.
Yeah.
It's got all of these elements that I really are like, wait, this could be good. So I hope it is.
Call this a revival show. Hey, the movies are back. The studio comedy's back. Who knew? Who knew all these things are coming back in this summer? Aram, last word to you, pal. What is the movie that you're most excited for this summer?
It's not a deep cut, and I haven't seen Mission Impossible yet. So that's what I want to see. I want to see something big, loud, a spectacle. I watch a lot of smaller independent films for my work. So I just need something big and some explosions and whatnot.
What I like about that is that like when we get to summer, something about our brains goes, it's time to maybe turn off the meditative stuff. I get it. I've thought about my role in my relationship with other people, about like the questions I want to mine inside of myself. But maybe we're done with this. Maybe it's time to just like have a thing explode and go, okay, here we go. Here we finally are there. Me personally, I tell you this, when I sort of like look at the slate of the summer, I keep talking about Jurassic World, but I think I'm genuinely excited about that franchise because every once in a while they make a choice where I go, that feels interesting to me. Dig there more often. Jonathan Bailey is coming off a couple of really solid years, Bridgerton, and then obviously, of course, Wicked. I want to see what he does in this franchise. That sounds like a potentially exciting thing to me. I don't know about you guys, but for me, I think like I'm planning on maybe like just seeing a movie in a theater once a week this entire summer. How do we feel about this? Is that your plan or is that too ambitious? What are you thinking?
I like it.
Doable.
I named the A-list.
It's a great plan.
Yeah. I very much a movie critic and movie industry response. You're like, yeah, we can do it. That's the thing we can do. Let's all do that. I really appreciate your time. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Of
Thank
course.
you.
This has been the best time. Aram Collier is the artistic director of the Toronto Real Asian International Film Festival. Alison Willmore is a film critic at Vulture in New York. And Hoai-Tran is an entertainment editor at Inverse. That is it for the show today. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. We'll see you again next week.